Welcome to the Scottish Rite Journal podcast, an audio presentation of the Scottish Rite Journal, brought to you by the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite, Southern Jurisdiction, Mother Supreme Council of the World. This week's article is Gentlemanliness, Freemasonry, and a True Example of Both by Nicholas Gregory, 33rd degree, and comes from the May-June 2022 issue of the Scottish Rite Journal. The question has often been asked, what is the definition of a gentleman? In 1899, the Sun, today the Baltimore Sun, published a contest calling for written essays on what is the definition of a gentleman. John Walter Wayland penned the winning submission entitled The True Gentleman. Mr. Wayland, a writer, poet, and historian, later co-authored in 1939 the historical sketch of Rockingham Union Lodge No. 27, Ancient Free and Accepted Masons, from October 29, 1789 to October 27, 1939. Meanwhile, Mr. Wayland's definition of the true gentleman is something that all Masons should study and reflect upon personally. In the words of his winning submission, "The true gentleman is the man whose conduct proceeds from goodwill and an acute sense of propriety, and whose self-control is equal to all emergencies, who does not make the poor man conscious of his poverty, the obscure man of his obscurity, or any man of his inferiority or deformity, who is himself humble if necessity compels him to humble another, who does not flatter wealth, cringe before power, or boast of his own possessions or achievements, who speaks with frankness but always with sincerity and sympathy, whose deed follows his word, who thinks of the rights and feelings of others rather than his own, and who appears well in any company, a man with whom honor is sacred and virtue safe." In Mr. Wayland's words, we note similarities in how Masons are instructed to conduct themselves, yet Wayland's definition of a gentleman, encompassing discernment, compassion, impartiality, benevolence, and much more, is a daunting challenge to put into practice. It seems as though one must be perfect in order to satisfy all of the requirements. Perfect, perhaps, is an appropriate term when understood in context. As Master Masons, we strive to perfect ourselves in Masonry. At no point in the Blue Lodge degrees does it say that we can completely achieve this standard of perfection. In the Scottish Rite, there is the Lodge of Perfection that includes the 4th through 14th degrees, and these degrees inculcate the continued progress towards perfection, admittedly unattainable here on earth. One man who epitomized the ideals of the true gentleman was illustrious and most worshipful brother Michael D. Smith, 33rd degree, Lieutenant Grand Commander and Sovereign Grand Inspector General in South Carolina, who passed away last year. A man of his word, Brother Mike always was willing to listen and to provide advice when needed. He was an exemplary leader who knew well to motivate all of those around him to higher goals. He cared genuinely about others, whether Freemasons or not, and believed that every human being has a claim upon our kind offices. If anyone ever lived up to the definition of the true gentleman, it was illustrious Brother Michael D. Smith. Wayland's definition of a gentleman may seem like an insurmountable quest, but it is important to remember that we should embark on this journey despite our shortcomings. Let us endeavor every day to be true, loyal, upright, and like-minded gentlemen and Freemasons, and by doing so, honor the memory of our departed brother. Any accompanying photographs or citations for this article can be found in the corresponding print edition. The Scottish Rite Journal is published by the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite, Southern Jurisdiction, Mother Supreme Council of the World. Mark Dreisenstock, 32nd degree, KCCH, Managing Editor. I'm your host, Matt Bowers.